Welcome back, everybody. Week 2's games are now all wrapped up, and though it's too early to tell what the playoff picture will look like, now is the time when teams can either establish themselves as a force in their division, or dig themselves a hole that will get progressively harder to climb out of. A new week brings us a new slate of matchups, and thus, another clash of two teams that are teetering between those two options, where their playoff caliber talent will either inspire confidence in their odds to take it the distance, or continue to showcase areas for improvement and just hope their wins column fills up the rest of the way. Today, we're talking about the Houston Texans and their upcoming trip to the Los Angeles Chargers, which essentially amounts to a neutral site game. To get into this preview though, let's start with the team that I think has the most to prove in this matchup, and that's the LA Chargers. Now, there's a reason that so many people had the Chargers making the playoffs again heading into 2019, even in the same division as the ever-dominant Chiefs. And that's because they have one of the league's best balances between great coaching from Anthony Lynn and excellent talent on both sides of the ball. They've been known to go into tough games and get tough wins by their guys showing up when it counts, but the injury plague that struck this team threatens to put a damper on that potential. While the long 16-game schedule provides time to make scheme changes and coach up poor play, it does not bode well for the Chargers with how populated their injury reports have been thus far. There's a lot of names, so I'm just going to touch on the most important ones rapid fire right here. Derwin James, whose impact cannot be overstated, is on IR. Tight end Hunter Henry suffered a fracture to his left knee. Their kicker Michael Badgley, who they sorely missed Sunday, is still nursing a groin injury. Their starting left tackle Russell Okung is also still on IR after a scary non-football related illness. And now safety Adrian Phillips, who was doing an excellent job of filling in for the aforementioned Derwin James, is out for the foreseeable future with a broken arm. All of this compounding with Melvin Gordon's continued holdout makes one of the more complete rosters in the NFL seem a lot less complete. That was a trend that was seen all too much in Week 2 against the Lions, where the only thing more concerning than those key injuries was how sloppy and uninspired the team looked in a 13-10 loss. There were penalties that erased touchdowns, turnovers at the worst possible times, and an overall inability to capitalize on the mistakes of Detroit, resulting in a frustrating loss for the Chargers in their first game on the road. It was a poor performance, to be sure, but the odds are that this team will rebound and this mess was more likely an outlier than a trend moving forward, but that will remain to be seen, maybe as early as this coming week. That gives us an avenue to discuss their opponent, the Houston Texans. The Texans are also 1-1, but they've got their own strengths and weaknesses to attend to as they attempt to establish themselves as a dominant contender in the AFC South. In Week 2, they squeaked out a defensive nail-biter against the Jacksonville Jaguars, but if it hadn't been for an incredible play made by safety Justin Reed, Houston might have been staring down an 0-2 record heading into this week's pivotal matchup. They've certainly had two tough games to open the year, so bringing home a win, no matter the circumstance, is nothing to complain about. And in terms of positives, Whitney Mercilus has been an absolute stud to begin the year, and his 2 strip sacks were nothing short of game-winning. It's also worth mentioning that the defense sold out to limit Leonard Fournette and held him to 3.13 yards per carry, so it's clear that this is still going to be a hard-nosed defensive unit. However, with all of that said, it's also worth mentioning that this is now the second straight week that Houston's defense has given up a critical scoring drive with less than a minute to go, so that is probably something to focus on if you don't want every single Texans fan having multiple aneurysms throughout the course of the regular season. It might be hopeless though, because the other side of the ball also tends to have its fair share of stress inducers as well, so you'll probably get your fix either way. Now, that isn't to do with a lack of skill players on the offense, an argument you could maybe make for a team like Jacksonville, but with Deshaun Watson, DeAndre Hopkins, Will Fuller, Duke Johnson, Carlos Hyde, and the list goes on, that should be more than enough to get it done offensively. The Texans' O-line is still a mess, and with each passing week, I get more and more concerned about Watson's longevity, considering this is the 8th straight game he's taken 4 or more sacks. He currently leads the NFL with 10 through 2 games, and that's not even factoring in quarterback hits. A decent amount of the hits that Watson does take can be attributed to how long he's holding on to the ball, so there's really no innocent party here, but something has got to change in this offense to keep their quarterback upright, because this is shaping up to look all too similar to a comparison that is obvious, but I'm gonna make it anyways because please do not mess this up, Texans. So now that we've had a brief rundown of last week for the two teams facing off at the Dignity Health Sports Park, whatever, what can we expect from these two teams in Week 3? Well, for me, the matchup to keep an eye on is going to be that Texans offensive line against the Chargers front seven, both of which are off to a relatively slow start. Now, there's no doubt that LA has one of the better pass rushing duos in the league in Joey Bosa and Melvin Ingram, but they were held in check against the Lions, with the entire team unable to record a single sack on Matthew Stafford after being stuffed by an improved Lions offensive line. However, I fully expect that to change this Sunday at home against the Texans, and Watson is a completely different quarterback when the defense is able to get through to him, so pressure throughout the day will pay dividends in both the run and pass game. The Chargers do still have some pretty shallow talented corner though, so expect Will Fuller or Kenny Stills to have lots of opportunity as Hopkins is likely shadowed by Casey Hayward and Desmond King locks down the slot. On the flip side, the Chargers will look to rebound in front of their home crowd, but playing more soundly is going to be absolutely essential if they're going to get a win against this solid Texan squad. Austin Eckler had a critical fumble at the 1-yard line last week against the Lions that might have cost his team the game, but I nonetheless still expect him to play a huge part in this Chargers offense, filling that dual threat role Melvin Gordon occupied prior to his holdout. If the Chargers are able to win in the quick passing game underneath to Eckler and Keenan Allen while keeping a surging Texans front at bay, there's a good chance that LA will be able to cruise to a victory and move to 2-1 on the season. Overall, it looks like it's going to be a really good game, and it's opened up on MyBookie with the Chargers as 3-point favorites at home. And I'm personally picking the Chargers to win and cover the spread, because while there are a lot of injury concerns for this team moving forward, I personally believe this matchup is going to come down to the better coached and better prepared team with these two similarly skilled rosters. I'm just not willing to bet against Anthony Lynn on that front. But all in all, as we start to get into the flow of the NFL season where each game means more and more by the week, even the winless teams of the league still have a shot at the playoffs. Just look at the Texans spinning from 0-3 and going on a 9-game run to win the division last year. So yes, there's a lot of football left to be played, but when the Chargers and Texans meet up on Sunday, only one of them gets to plant their flag as the better team in the AFC playoff race. Thank you for watching. If you guys are listening to this and happen to be looking for a place to get involved in betting on the slate of games each week, then look no further than this series' sponsor over at MyBookie. They're one of the world's leading online sportsbooks, and they are hooking up everyone watching this video with an awesome 100% bonus for your first deposit of up to $1,000. All you have to do is use my code EDGE at the link below. I use their website every week personally, and it could not be easier or more reliable of a service even if you're just getting started with sports betting. So if you're interested, feel free to check out MyBookie at the link down below and use my code EDGE to double your first deposit of up to $1,000. So thank you to MyBookie, and I'll see you all on Friday for another video. Take care.